And if you are one of my family members watching this review, no, you didn't. Don't talk to me about it. I'm gonna deny everything. As a woman who likes books, people always assume I read ACOTAR, Fourth Wing, or Colleen Hoover. But the truth is that not only do I have a bad track record with romantasy, but I actually don't really like adult romance. And the primary reason I don't like adult romance is because I am, in fact, a baby. I get such a visceral reaction upon seeing or reading any kind of explicit material, which is typically found in these kinds of books. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm like this. All I know is that the minute I sense any kind of sexual tension, I will start screaming. Oh my god, hold on. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, I'm a weenie. I'm a loser. I'm pathetic. However, there is one series that, despite having a trigger warnings page so long that it could make a grown man cry, it happens to be my guilty pleasure. So I got into the series when the first book, Lights Out, was traditionally published, and I had so many people recommend me the audiobook specifically, and that is where I met the man, the myth, the legend, Zachary Weber, aka Jacob Morgan. And listen, I can't defend myself. That man has a nice voice and he knows it. On Lights Out, he's credited as Jacob Morgan, and at the time I didn't know Jacob Morgan and Zachary Weber were the same person. And when I got into Lights Out, he also had his whole scandal. I forgot what those people's names are, but basically he was like, oh yeah, fuck Zionists, whatever, right? And these authors were like, that's actually really offensive. You shouldn't say that. So I was going to bat for this man without really knowing who he was. I did not know his game. So imagine the euphoria when I found out that these two men were the same person. It was like, on the one hand, there's this guy that I really admire for his stance on political issues and not backing down from a fight. And then on the other hand, I have the audiobook narrator for Lights Out who did a spectacular job. I felt like Adrian finding out that Marinette and Ladybug were the same person. I was starstruck. Respectfully. I don't want to take away from his advocacy work. He does so much. And I don't want to reduce him to just having a nice voice. He's a good man, Savannah. He's a good man. Anyway, last year I read the sequel to Lights Out, which was Caught Up, and I did review it on the channel, although I focused more on the social commentary. It was supposed to be the start of a series called Everything But the Spice. Really, the problem with me trying to continue that series is that it required me to find spicy books that had plot, or at least some kind of social commentary, something I could talk about. And then I also just had to read a lot of spice. And as I've already said, that's not really my forte. But now we have a new addition to the series, Game On, which came on. Whoa. And you better believe that the minute that became available at my library, I was first in line for the audiobook. So now I finished the book. I read one of the darkest, spiciest books of this year, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. Well, everything except the spice, that is. Well, maybe a little bit at the end. We'll see. No, today I want to discuss more about the plot, the social commentary, because yes, this book is not just smut. We have a Robin Hood plotline, very Luigi Mangione-esque, if you will. There's commentary on the wealth gap, healthcare inequality, and even chronic illness. So without further ado, hello, welcome back. It is a new day, a new sleigh, and a new video where I have something to say, and today I will be talking about everything but the spice in Game On. So first, I am going to start with a brief summary of this book. Given that it's the third in a series, you're probably going to want to read books 1 and 2, at the very least to get some context in Game On, because the characters in the first 2 books do make cameos, but I'm just going to give you a quick TLDR to connect the storylines. So book 1, Lights Out, follows Josh and Allie. Josh is the son of a notorious serial killer. Obviously, that gives him a bit of trauma, so to cope with that, Josh makes masked thirst trap content on TikTok, and Allie happens to be his biggest fan. So Lights Out follows their love story. It's one of the more popular out of the entire series. Obviously, it was the first one, and is personally my favorite. Nothing really tops Lights Out for me. I'm so sorry. So Allie is cousins with this other guy whose name is Junior, aka Nico. And he is the son of a mob boss. Junior ends up falling in love with this girl Lauren, who is a cam girl that he used to go to school with. Lauren frequents this play club, as they refer to it, called Velvet. And because Junior loves her, obviously this is still a romance, he works out a deal, threat, blackmail, those all mean the same thing. He works with the landlord of the building to make sure that their rent stays affordable so that Velvet can stay open. The details are kind of hard to explain. It's been a while since I've read Caught Up, but the only thing you really need to know is that Tyler, the main character of our book right now, is also in on this deal with Junior. So he partly owns the play club Velvet. So this now brings us to the start of this book. Game on. Tyler, the main character of our book, is secretly a crime lord himself. He runs an illegal gambling ring with some of the richest people in the city. I don't know if they ever name it, but I'm pretty sure it's Chicago. Maybe I see what I want to see. I need more Chicago representation in books. Everyone is always in LA or New York. I'm tired. Go somewhere else. There are other good cities in the world, damn. But despite being involved in the dark underworld, Tyler's crimes are not without purpose. His whole goal with this entire gambling ring is so that he can get closer to his mysterious father, a wealthy businessman that abandoned him and his mother when he found out that she was pregnant, leaving both of them destitute. And now Tyler has something of a vendetta against him and is hell-bent on bringing him down. Now enter our love interest in this book, Stella. She's a tattoo artist that was born with a silver spoon in her mouth. Despite coming from generational wealth, the wealth that you and I can't even begin to fathom, Stella actually is a small business owner and has her own little tattoo shop. Their paths cross when Stella's younger brother Blake gets mixed up in this gambling ring and leaves with a debt of $3 million. Homeboy gambled his entire inheritance away in a single night. So Stella works out a deal with Tyler. In exchange for her taking on Blake's debt, she will introduce him to all the high rollers in the city. She agrees to take him to her family parties so he can meet more clients and rack up more debt to help clear Stella's. So that's the brief summary. If you don't want any spoilers and you want to read the book for yourself, then I suggest you click off the video now. And if you plan on reading the book, for the love of God, read the trigger warnings. I don't know what this says about me, but I feel like it was pretty tame this time around. And that's saying a lot coming from me. If you watched my reaction to Heated Rivalry, you will know that I'm a weenie. So for me to tell you that it's not that bad, I think you can take my word for it. But yeah, just read the trigger warnings. If for any reason then to just understand what sexual endeavors these characters get up to, the other stuff is like, whatever. Now with that out of the way, let's get on with the rest of the review. First, I'm going to go over some of the themes in the book, starting with the Robin Hood plotline, as I've been calling it, because this is where I think the book really shined. Like, some of this social commentary was actually very good. So I call it the Robin Hood plotline because obviously we understand the character of Robin Hood as well as the archetype, steal from the rich, give to the poor. Great. Very anti-hero, very morally gray, depending on how you spin it, which I think really applies to our main character, Tyler. He really is set up as a Robin Hood-esque character because he specifically targets the wealthy. With his little gambling ring, he tells us frequently throughout the book that he doesn't put innocent people in a position of debt. Anyone that's invited to these parties are people that can pay to play. And knowing that, he puts them into debt for his own gain. He recognizes that these people have way more money than they know what to do with. The kind of money where you're so bored with having literally everything you could ever want that the only way you can get a rush of adrenaline is by gambling it all away. And rightfully so, that pisses him off, and that's why he targets them. I can understand that. I actually really like that. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, Tyler is more on the morally gray side of Robin Hood. And I know the term morally gray gets thrown around a lot, but this is one of the few instances that I think it actually applies. He's not a character that just has dark features or wears dark colors and that's what makes him morally gray. Not at all. Because while Tyler is doing something that we can at least recognize is good, he's targeting the wealthy, he's still not a good person. He is not doing it for altruistic purposes. For example, Tyler understands that poverty exists in the world. He himself is a victim of poverty, which is primarily why he targets the wealthy and the corrupt. But at the same time, he's only doing it for his own benefit. He's not literally Robin Hood because he's not stealing from the wealthy to give back to the poor. Instead, he is only motivated by his own selfish desires. He is using that money to get him closer to his Machiavellian plan of revenge. I'm sorry, I really like the term Machiavellian. Like, any excuse I can find to use that in a sentence, I will. I'm a pretentious asshole, what can I say? Even as he's going about his criminal endeavors, he really doesn't have a hard code of morals or ethics because they will always go out the window when measured up against his ultimate goal. If it's a matter of, hey, protect the innocent or get revenge on my father, he's gonna choose get revenge on my father. He tells us repeatedly that he doesn't target the innocent, but he does so within the first chapter of this book because his first victim in Game On is Blake, Stella's younger brother. He arranges for him to come to this event, gets him drunk, and knows that he's going to waste all his money. Tyler arranged for this whole thing to happen so that he could get to Stella and get his invite into all the family parties. And instead of feeling remorse for his actions, he convinces himself that Blake deserves it because he's rich. And because of his wealth, then surely he must be corrupt. He must have done something at some point in his life to deserve Tyler's fury. There's also like a cute little side scene where Tyler is talking to the waitstaff at one of these parties. And at first it kind of comes across as like, okay, he's like a working class guy. He's relating to these people. He's like, no, I'm not one of these rich assholes. I see you as a human being. We can have a nice conversation. And at first it just seems really nice because it's like, oh my God, yeah, like the employees at this event were acting like abused children, like flinching anytime someone in a suit came near them. So it's like, oh my God, Tyler's probably like the first person that actually like talks to them like human beings. And then you realize that the only reason he's doing it is to get information on the family. So like, he's not a good guy. Anytime you think he's doing something nice, like he has an ulterior motive. So he is very morally gray. Like he doesn't really abide by any rules. And even if he tells himself that he does, there's always a loophole. There's always a reason that he can get away with being a bad person. And ultimately, I think that makes him a very interesting and very flawed character, particularly because Tyler himself is now a rich man. Through his illegal endeavors, he has made a substantial amount of money, and yet he still tries to differentiate himself from the richer classes. It's a painful irony for the reader to see Tyler engage in illegal activity, see him threaten and scare the people he cares about, target innocent people, and use his money to buy influence so he can continue his gambling ring. These are all actions that he criticizes the wealthy for. But Tyler justifies this to himself because he believes that since it's all in the purpose of getting revenge on his father, then it's warranted. It is worth these costs. He's not doing it because he wants to, it's for a reason. And the minute he gets his revenge, he's going to stop. And that's what makes him quote unquote better than the wealthy. He can't see that he's wrong because he thinks that the driving factor of these behaviors is money and not something about the individual. He doesn't see it as a personal moral failing. He truly thinks that the minute someone gets an absurd amount of money that they will automatically become corrupt. And yet simultaneously believes that when he gets a lot of money that he can fight off said corruption. It's very interesting being in his head, and it's very clear to see all the contradictions and watch his character arc as he realizes the same things that we as the reader know. But that's primarily why he sees all rich people as bad, including his love interest, Stella. And it's when his way of thinking is challenged and he realizes that Stella is not an evil person that he starts to question himself and his character arc becomes fully realized. And I say fully realized in heavy quotes. Again, I am alluding to the ending of this book, which is not my favorite, and I will explain why. But first, we're going to talk about income inequality because that seems to be Tyler's biggest motivation. It, of course, stems from his childhood trauma. So Tyler was born out of an affair between the wealthy business partner of Stella's parents. Yes, this is a very messy web. Everyone is connected. It's an incredibly small world. So Stella's parents have a business partner named Richard. He's super wealthy, and he eventually meets Tyler's mom after she just moved to the city from a tiny rural farm town. And when it comes to his anger about the situation, there are a few contributing factors. First, there's the age gap between Richard and his mom when they first started seeing each other, which I think is a very clear commentary on the ways that older men will target and take advantage of younger women, especially when it comes to wealth gaps, and how oftentimes these women are put in very compromising situations. Case in point, Tyler's mom got pregnant and was left destitute with no way of supporting herself. Then, of course, there's the wealth gap, which seems to be the primary point of contention, because in Tyler's mind, had Richard simply been a part of their lives, even provided child support, his life would have been very different. For one, he would have had a much more stable home life, he wouldn't have food insecurity, and his mom would be around more, not having to work 50 plus hours a week just to support their family. And of course, with more money, they would have better access to healthcare, which becomes more of a concern when Tyler gets older and his mom is diagnosed with cervical cancer. All these struggles that he faced in his life, he believes could have been easily solved if Richard just gave them a small portion of the massive wealth that he has attained over the years. And this further fuels his anger when he attends some of Stella's parties and he realizes how ungodly wealthy some of these people are. I really like this aspect of Tyler's character because at the start of the book, he has very black and white thinking. In his mind, if you're rich, then you're bad. Like you are just a bad person. You have done something in your life. You are corrupt in one way or another. And with this mindset, he is able to label anyone as bad and justify his own actions in his mind for why he's taking advantage of these people. Even if they're innocent, like if they are by proxy related to anyone that happens to be rich, he tells himself that they are complicit, that they somehow have done something corrupt or otherwise deserve to have all these bad things happen to them. And it's only through his relationship with Stella that he starts to see this gray area. Particularly, this gray area is with the idea of change. At the start of the book, Tyler believes that if you have done something wrong in your life, then you are a bad person, and you can never not be a bad person. There is no growth, there is no change, there's no redemption for you. But that thinking is directly challenged by Stella because of her background. Again, we know that she grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth, she was very spoiled, and she had the world at her fingertips. And because of that, she made bad decisions, she was reckless with her life, and eventually got involved with a hit and run crash with her friend Maddie. And it is this incident that forces her to take accountability, to grow up, and to actually take responsibility for the things that she's done. So in Tyler's mind, when he first meets Stella, he thinks that she deserves everything that's going to happen to her in this book, simply because of this incident. But when he learns more about it, when he finds out that Stella actually wasn't the one behind the wheel, that Stella has been paying for the woman's medical bills, and that she has been trying to become a better person and has made changes in her life since that incident, he starts to question himself. Because Stella's not bad. I mean, she did a bad thing once, but she's different now. She's actually making changes. She's owning up to her actions. Even if she wasn't the one behind the wheel, she is still going above and beyond to take care of this person whose life that she helped ruin. And that's really a mirror for Tyler's character arc throughout the book. And I actually really like it because it forces you as the reader to kind of think like, are people capable of change? Can you forgive someone? I kind of went over this in my last video, funny enough, where I had a whole segment about what it means to forgive. And basically in the book that I read last week, it was saying that to forgive someone, funny enough, it really does tie in with this book. To forgive someone is to basically like clear their debt. Because when you wrong someone, you are essentially like in their debt. And to forgive is to essentially be like, okay, I will swallow the cost of your debt. You now owe me nothing. We are going to move past this. And that is kind of exemplified in this book. It's so funny actually, because as like a gambling crime lord or whatever, Tyler deals in debts, in people owing him things. He himself as a character believes that he was owed something from Richard. And because of this unwillingness to forgive Richard or even entertain the idea that he can be someone that can be forgiven, he forces that debt between them. And Tyler basically has to reckon with himself as a character if he's willing to hold on to this debt, this power he believes that he needs to have over people, or if he's okay with just letting it go. Letting go of that power, that manipulation that he has over people in favor of forgiveness. Holy shit, that's actually, it's all metaphorical. And see, people will pick up this book and be like, oh my God, it's smut. There is some good commentary if you only have the eyes to see it. It's talking about forgiveness. It's talking about change, about the gray areas with people, because yes, we have all done bad things. We have all wronged someone in one way or another. You might not know it, but you are probably the villain in someone's story. If you want to learn more about like that forgiveness and that kind of like thought process, the debt of forgiveness, then you can watch my other video. The next big part about this book is the focus on chronic illness. Now, the author, Navessa Allen, was very clear in the promotions for this book where she said that she wanted a character to reflect her own struggles because she herself has a chronic illness. And she wanted a character to help represent that experience. So Stella, our love interest, suffers from chronic gastritis, a condition that makes it really hard for her to eat and at the start of the book makes her incredibly underweight. There's a point in the book where Stella points out that she and Tyler are basically their own personal hells. You know, hell is other people, right? Because Tyler is someone that grew up with food insecurity. He is wildly uncomfortable with the feeling of hunger, and because of it, he always carries snacks with him. He is always eating, which I kind of find funny that they never portrayed him as being overweight in any way. He's a big guy. I think they said he's 6'5". I'm like, ugh, scary. But that never manifests in overeating, which I found interesting. The idea of hunger makes Tyler very uneasy, and it bothers him when he's with Stella and he sees that she's not eating because he sees that she's really underweight, that she's very bony. So he sees that she can really benefit from some more meat on her bones, for lack of a better term. But what he doesn't understand until later on in the book is that Stella literally can't eat. Her gastritis makes it so that she has to follow a very specific diet. She can't always eat whenever she wants to. And the condition flares up with things like stress or having a bad sleep schedule. But initially, Tyler sees Stella as an underweight rich girl. He doesn't immediately assume that she has an underlying condition or otherwise a reason for being underweight. And at the start of the book, he copes with this discomfort of not seeing her eat by force feeding her. Not literally. He's just very pushy, where he's like, have some of this food. This food is really good. You should have some. Please eat this food as I am putting it on your plate in front of you. I like the development of this plot point because once Tyler discovers that she has chronic gastritis, he doesn't suddenly back off. He still has that anxiety with food insecurity, with feeling hungry. So instead, he kind of switches tactics where he's like, okay, I can't tell Stella to eat just anything. I need to be aware of her condition. So instead, he packs snacks in his car that are gastritis friendly, stuff that she can actually eat so that he can feel at least some kind of peace of mind knowing that she's having something while still not forcing her to hurt herself by eating something that is not going to be good for her. Now, a lot of people on Goodreads, I noticed, are saying that Stella's only character trait is her chronic illness. And admittedly, there were a few points throughout the book where I just kept thinking to myself, damn, Stella talks about having gastritis a lot. I feel a little overwhelmed. And then almost immediately after that thought popped into my mind, I was like, yeah, no shit. It's a chronic illness, meaning that it doesn't go away for her. I think the constant references to her condition are meant to reflect what it's like to live with said condition. It's truly an issue of imagine how tired she is of it.
But imagine how tired we are. Imagine how tired we are of it.
So I think a lot of people were funny enough, just really not recognizing that. Her gastritis doesn't just turn off, and it is impacted by the things going on around her, the stresses that she's going through, the sleepless nights, all the chaos in her life does exacerbate her condition, which is why we're getting so many references to it, which is why so many of her emotions and feelings are tied to her condition because they're one and the same. Now, with that in mind, I will say that I think some of her other character traits could have been highlighted to help make her feel more fleshed out as a character, because a lot of the focus is on her chronic illness, and I just felt like I didn't know that much about her. Besides that, I became very familiar with her condition, what exacerbates it, what her flare-ups look like, but I didn't really know that much about her as an individual, what she does in her free time, what her hobbies are. She has her one friend who happens to be the victim of the hit and run, and their whole dynamic is that they essentially just trauma dump on each other. But otherwise, there's not really a lot about Stella as an individual, which I find really interesting because she's a tattoo artist and she rarely talks about her art. There's a scene in the later half of the book where Tyler is in Stella's apartment and he sees that she has a sketch pad in which she has drawings of Tyler in there. And I was just thinking to myself, we never saw Stella actually draw those. I didn't even know that drawing in her free time was something that she did. I'm sure tattoo artists do that. It sounded like she went to school for art. She obviously likes it if she's a tattoo artist. And yet we never see her with with other clients really. And there's one other client that we see her with, drawing in her free time. When she got into tattooing, like, there's not a lot about her background. Even as she like talked about how she got into tattooing and why she was drawn to it over other media forms, I feel like that's the other biggest part about her character, and it kind of just fades into the background. Other than that, I really could not tell you about Stella. Additionally, and I'm gonna need everyone to let me finish my thought before you type in your comment, I'm gonna ask you for grace and understanding as I get through this point in my video. With the depictions of Stella's chronic illness, there are a lot of comments about how skinny Stella is, which, yes, that is a side effect of her chronic illness specifically. They frequently say that she's very bony, that she looks like a corpse, and that's all fine and dandy, whatever, right? But there's one line that Stella makes about her weight that kind of ruins it for me. It's early on in the book, and Stella basically says that she used to get comments on her Instagram basically telling her to eat a cheeseburger. And the way she says it in the book, you would think that she was equating eat a cheeseburger to a slur. The book gives it so much weight. Funny. And I understand what we were going for here. She's trying to say that it's not that simple. She can't literally just eat a cheeseburger because her gastritis makes it really hard for her to eat. She has to have very specific foods. She has to follow a specific diet. It's not a matter of just like, oh, you need to eat more to put on more weight. But the problem for me, and what kind of like ruins the effect, is that the comment eat a cheeseburger is historically used by skinny people to complain about being skinny. And they always bring it up as in like yes, I too am oppressed. I am also insecure despite being the beauty standard. Like, I think it would have worked so much better in the book if we got some additional monologue from Stella. I think like a simple line of like, hey, I actually would love to just eat a cheeseburger. I would love to pound that shit back ASAP, but I literally can't. I just, I find it a little difficult to like sympathize with people when they're like, yeah, the worst thing someone's ever said to me is eat a cheeseburger. Like, babes, who are you talking to right now? When people are telling you to go to McDonald's, they were calling me McDonald's, like otherwise, like I get it. I truly understand like how that is also concerning for her to be so underweight and to feel insecure about the way it makes her look, especially because she's really bony. I really get that, especially because it's a result of her chronic illness, something that she cannot control. It is truly just eat a cheeseburger that throws me off. So if you didn't guess, ultimately, I didn't necessarily like this book. I was really praising it at the beginning, but as I've already alluded to, it kind of fell apart towards the end. Now, I had really high hopes for like this Robin Hood vigilante plotline. I was really excited about it. But at the end of the book, there's a major twist that ruins everything for me. Basically, Tyler discovers that his father, Richard, did try to be a part of his life. Richard wanted him as a son. Richard wanted to provide for him. And when Tyler finds this out, he's like, oh my God, I can't ruin this man's life. I need to give up my life of crime. And he just like gives up. He's like, I'm gonna stop my gambling ring. I'm going to be a better person now. And I'm just like, great. However, we have unfinished business. The unfinished business I'm referring to is that at the beginning of the book, Stella was involved in a hit and run incident in which her friend Maddie was behind the wheel of a car. She was under the influence and she hit a woman on the side of the street. She left that woman for dead and instead immediately called her parents to make sure that she wouldn't go to prison. So Stella had to take the blame for the entire incident, and she's been the one covering all of the medical costs. And then we also find out through Tyler that Maddie had actually committed murder in another country in which some girl was hitting on her boyfriend and she threw the girl overboard. So this girl has blood on her hands. And throughout the book, they hype up this revenge plot where they're like, okay, we're going to get Maddie into this gambling ring. She's going to lose all her money. And then Tyler is going to send his goons after him. Like, it's going to be great. She is finally going to get the karma that she deserves. And I'm excited for this. I'm like, okay, perfect. Because what I really liked about Lights Out is that there was some vigilante justice. Because spoiler for Lights Out, but basically in that book, they accidentally kill a serial rapist and murderer. And the plot of that book is them trying to cover up the crime. And I loved it. I loved that plot line. Oh my God. Every day I wish I could forget reading Lights Out so I could read it again for the first time. Then in Game On, they tease me with the vigilante justice. They tease me with the idea of retribution against the wealthy. This is the lower class rising up. I'm excited. And then nothing happens to Maddie. We hype up this plot of her revenge, and then suddenly Tyler has a change of heart and he's like, nah, I'm not gonna put her in debt. Instead, we're just going to tell the police about her crimes. This aggravates me to no end because Tyler as a character is a very distrusting guy. And that's partly because he knows how corruption works. He knows that Maddie has been able to get away with all these crimes because she's rich. So tell me why in any world he would think that going to the police would be effective. He's like, oh, we're gonna leak this story to the press so that she can't get out of it. You motherfucker. You dumb motherfucker. I'm like, in a post-Epstein world, you think the press is gonna do anything? Like, we all know that there's a criminal on our streets right now. And you know what we've done? We put him in office. I didn't do that. But some of you stupid motherfuckers did. So the concept that Tyler would think that leaking this story that she committed a murder to the press would do anything floors me, especially because of his character. Like, he is very distrusting as an individual. So why would he think that the justice system would suddenly work in his favor? Especially when we find out that he had actually paid off some cops, and that's how he was able to keep his gambling ring up and running. Oh my God. I'm like, this girl was very plainly evil. Like, they make her out to seem like a villain. She has no redeeming qualities. It would have been so easy to get revenge on her instead. And then we just don't. I have been edged in the worst way possible, and that's because I've been denied the release of vigilante justice and retribution. God forbid I want my dark romance to be a little dark. I want retribution. I want justice, maybe if it comes at the price of a little violence. That's okay. That's okay. Because I'm like, you know what? This girl committed murder, almost manslaughter. Like, I think out of all the characters in this book, she deserves it. And then on top of that, it's like a one-off line in the epilogue where Tyler's like, look at this headline. It says that Maddie is being investigated by the FBI. And then we don't find out what happens at the end of that investigation. Because I can tell you what happens at the end of the investigation. The FBI is going to be like, yeah, that girl probably did that thing that you're all accusing her of. And then nothing else would happen. Nothing. So that is actually my biggest hang up about this book. Like, I just wish we had a little bit more follow through in the dark aspect of the book. That's kind of why I didn't like Caught Up either, because the love interest in that book, Nico, he was just kind of like aggressive and mean. And I have a limit, okay? Funny enough, everyone on Goodreads was hating on Tyler for the same reason. They're like, he's just rude and mean and an asshole. I don't know what this says about me, but I actually didn't think he was that bad. I think because in Caught Up, the main character is like physically violent and aggressive, and that I don't like. Right? Tyler was more waging psychological warfare. Like, he was manipulative, he was cunning, and I was like, yeah. Because you know what? I could respect the planning. I could respect the lifelong revenge plot, the spite. And you know what? He was a smart guy. He was like really intellectual. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I look for in a man. At the end of the day, I crave an intellectual equal. So seeing this man like constantly be one step ahead of Stella, like there's an instance where he's like making this plan with her and he's like, okay, here's your debt. You're going to invite me to all these parties. He plants like a little sound device so that it would mess up any recordings that she has. And then we find out in her chapter that she did try to record the conversation and the recording is ruined. And I was like, oh, he's such a smart guy. I can't even hate him, even though he's committing crime right now, because I can appreciate the hustle. The one thing I didn't like about his character, I will say, his one trait is that whenever he's mad, he drives recklessly. And that is like the biggest ick of my life. Say what you want. It does come from deep-seated trauma. I have been in a relationship with someone that was really aggressive behind the wheel when he was angry. I actually got into a car accident on the night of my graduation because he was angry at me and he crashed his car. Funny enough, like the book also really focuses on car. It's a very car-centered book. There are so many instances between Tyler and Stella where they're trying to like create emotional vulnerability and like really have like a heart-to-heart moment between them, and it always happens because of a car. The first instance is when he's being reckless behind the wheel and he realizes that he's scaring her and he's like, oh, my bad, Pookie. I forgot you have trauma. let me relax. Then there's another time where they get into a fight and he's driving and a car runs the red light and almost hits them, and he has to swerve out of the way, and she gets really spooked by the whole endeavor, and he has to carry her home because she's so traumatized. And it's like a really deep emotional moment between them. And then the third instance, this had me laughing because it comes out of nowhere. It's so oddly placed in the book, and it's very clear he just needed a moment to like realize his feelings for her. And they thought that the best way to do that was by hitting Stella with a car. Basically, Tyler and Stella went to go visit his aunt, and that's where he finds out that his dad is actually not a bad guy and did want to play a role in his life. And Tyler, in a daze, is like walking away from the house, and he leaves Stella behind. And then he turns back, and all of a sudden, his aunt is in a car, and for some reason she's in like a really big hurry to leave. So she mows down Stella. Rather, she like clips her on the side. Stella flies backwards, she hits her head, and Tyler's like, oh my God. And he has to call Allie so that she can walk him through how to do like CPR and all this other shit. And I just couldn't help but think to myself, like, why was she in such a hurry to leave? Why did she choose to hit Stella with a car? Like, she came across as a very temperamental character, but nothing about their interaction would have made me suspect that she would do that. Like, it's one thing to be an asshole, it's another thing to like almost commit manslaughter. It's just so oddly placed, and it's painfully clear that the only reason we have that scene is to create like tension and emotional vulnerability, where he's like, oh my God, Stella, you almost died. I realized I love you, and I couldn't let you die before I told you that. And it becomes glaringly obvious that like any kind of emotional vulnerability between these characters has to happen because of trauma. That's the only way that these characters can really vibe with each other, because their only dynamic is arguing and bullying each other, which, you know, I used to be someone that said like, you know, a little light bullying is my love language, but you know, you need to have something on top of that. It can't just be constantly bickering or like pushing each other's buttons. Like, they really don't have a lot of like emotional chemistry. They have a lot of sexual and romantic chemistry, nothing beyond that, which, I mean, I think it works okay for this kind of book. If I was reading like a more contemporary romance, no. The emotional aspect of their relationship, like, it doesn't sell me. I think they work together because they're like attracted to each other physically. Otherwise, I don't think they have a lot going on in that department. The funniest part of that interaction is that Stella gets hit by the car, and Tyler takes her to the hospital where they find out she has a concussion, and she is like covered in like scrapes and bruises. So they stay at a hotel for the night, and despite Stella's injuries, they almost immediately go right into having sex with each other. I'm like, dude, you really want to risk banging her head into the headboard? Like, come on now. She is concussed. This couldn't wait until she was like at least a little bit healed. I'm so glad that there were so many reviews also pointing that out, because like I just could not stop thinking, I'm like, this girl literally got hit by a car, and you guys are gonna go into like really kinky, intense like time and place. Oh my God. Overall though, my biggest beef with this book is that we didn't do anything with Maddie. She essentially got off scot-free. Like, no one was really punished in the way that they should have been, I feel. Yeah, overall, I think I would give this book like a 2, maybe a 3 out of 5. I like a lot of the social commentary. Again, I just wish it didn't lose momentum at the end. I wish we followed through with a little bit of it. The spice is... I don't know how to review spice. Did I scream? Yes. Did I skip ahead through some of the parts? Also, yes. Primarily because there is a point in the book where there's like a very clear like slurping sound, and I'm like, that's too accurate. I can't listen to that. I literally feel my face getting hot just thinking about it. I mean, the book was entertaining. I really am chasing the high of Lights Out. Like, nothing tops that for me. I'm so sorry. Like, I think out of Caught Up and Game On is a close second. Caught Up, I don't know. It didn't land very well for me. This one was okay. But anyway, that is the end of my video. Let me know in the comments if you read Game On, what you think about it. If you're familiar with this series. I know like Lights Out is really popular, but from my understanding, the other 2 books are like a little iffy in the community. Anyway, be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow me on all my social media at Listen to Kristen on TikTok, Instagram, and Goodreads. And yeah, with that, I guess that's the end of my video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. I'm scared to ask for recommendations like based on Lights Out, but if anyone has anything similar, I would be open to reading it. Hesitant, but open. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.